All right, y'all go to withoutyourhead.com. I'll come over there and put my boot up in your ass.
Well, welcome to the station of decapitation without your head. I'm Nasty Neil, and I'm joined by Joe Knetter, the Hanukiller himself of Hanukkah, which comes out next Tuesday. It's very cool to have you here.
Yeah, thanks, man. I'm stoked. I'm looking forward to seeing the reaction from the audience to a new kind of holiday slasher.
Yeah, it's weird because there's a ton of Christmas slasher movies, Christmas horror movies. I think there's more Christmas horror movies than there are Halloween horror movies. But to my knowledge, there is no Hanukkah horror movie till now.
No, I think this is the first one. And the beauty of it is, because I love Christmas horror, but you really only watch it. For me, I only watch it around December, unless we're talking Gremlins. That's a year-round thing. But the Hanukkah is different because I think it can play any time of the year. I mean, certainly there's a little bit of a Santa Claus in there, and there's some lights. But for most people, Hanukkah is going to be brand new. I know it was for me going into the project.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. Did you research Hanukkah itself to know a little bit about it?
I actually didn't. I came into this project. I think they had been filming for 2 days already when I was brought in. It was totally last minute. I was brought in to replace somebody who couldn't make it. So I had already worked 1 day doubling the original Hanukiller who was going to be playing it because he wasn't out here yet. And they brought me in on the day Sarah was shooting because Sarah had a topless scene and figured she'd be more comfortable with me in the background versus some other random dude, which they don't know that she's more uncomfortable around me than anybody because of how much machismo I ooze. She's it's hard for her to fake dead when I'm around because, the sexuality is just, it's like a cloud.
The Razor Ramon of horror films.
Yes. I'm wearing an AEW shirt right now.
Awesome. I'm very excited about it. Yeah, in 3 hours, AEW will be on.
Yeah,
I'm a huge fan.
It's wonderful. But because I was brought in so last minute, it was kind of just, I got the call saying, hey, we want to give you to play the whole thing. And can you be here in a couple hours? So I really didn't have a chance to even jump into the script or anything. When I got to set, I just talked to Eben and Chris Ott. Eben McGarr, the director, Chris Ott, the producer, and kind of worked about 50 things in this project, running all over the place. And basically just said, okay, what are you going for with this? What do you want me to do? And they quickly laid, that, listen, he thinks he's right. He's following his dad's footsteps. I said, perfect. That's a perfect villain. So everything I did was always under the guise that I was helping people and I was trying to do the right thing. I was at no point thinking I was a bad guy. So there were questions here and there because we did have a rabbi on set. Eben brought a rabbi to ensure that everything kind of stayed the way it should be.
I was say that's always my favorite kind of villain is a villain that, in their mind they're doing right. Even in wrestling too. This was brought up wrestling. I think a good villain is someone they're justified in their own mind.
Oh yeah, it's Mick Foley 101. I mean, I read both of his books, and he goes into detail about that. And that's just kind of how I played it. I played it that I was always trying to help people, but I'm a little off. I played it more of a blank. Mm-hmm. I didn't want to give a lot of emotion, and any emotion I had was kind of forced and felt a little weird. So I had fun with it. I mean, I went from 1 day to 4 days to, I think, 16 days on it.
Now, did you know Eben and Chris before Eben McGarr, Chris Ott?
I did. I've known those guys for years. Yeah. So they're both friends of mine, and it was an easy. I mean, they were shooting at that point. We're in Rick Baker's old house, nice. Which is what doubled for where the kids were. It's close to where I live, so I could get over there quick. And those guys and I have always got along. I mean, they're great guys. This is Eben's dream to have made this movie for 10 years. So I was happy just to jump in. And plus, come on, the fucking cast.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, Dick Miller, Sid Haig, Caroline Williams. It's just amazing.
PJ Souls. Mm-hmm. Harry Manfredini did a score, which is, I mean, you said you went to you were there, right? In December?
The premiere in December, which oddly enough, Eben was not there, even though it was his 10-year dream to make the movie.
Yes, he was not at that one. He had already something going on he was at. So, but I mean, come on, that music, like for me, I love I love the middle Friday the 13th movies, with 3 and 4 being my favorite. And then 5 is my third favorite, which I always get a lot of shit for. But I absolutely love 5. And that score had so many notes reminiscent of 5 that I was giddy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think 5 is definitely the most underrated of the movies, because everyone looks down because it's the fake Jason, but it's a good movie on its own, and it makes sense. If you watch all of them in a row, it makes sense with the other ones.
Yeah, it's the last one for me that feels like the Friday the 13th movies. I love part 6, but 6 is where everything transitioned.
Yeah, I agree. Then it's more. Then it's like kind of supernatural after that.
Yes, yeah, and 5 was sleazy as hell, and I love that about it.
Right? Yeah. So, like you mentioned, you're like kind of a clean slate in the movie. I think sometimes people think maybe that's easy to play, like a killer that doesn't speak or anything. But as someone who watches a million horror movies, if you see someone who doesn't do a good job in the killer that's kind of mute and stuff, you could tell it's not an easy thing to do. So was it harder, or what was that like to play that character?
I wouldn't say for me it wasn't harder, because I'm a writer by trade. I'm not really much of an actor. I mean, I've popped up in a lot of things here and there, and I'm good at being an asshole. I'm good at being a horrible person, but if you give me words, I struggle. Even if they're the words I wrote, I just can't remember. So for me, it was nice to be able to do that, but it's more hard to just stay in that headspace. Like, I did a scene with Chris Ott as Santa Claus, and it was hard not to laugh through that whole performance, but I have to just stay blank, stare straight ahead and go through it. And my eye line is the crew. And then there's some people visiting that day, and they're all laughing and trying to keep it in. And that can be difficult. And also my scenes with Victoria, Demare, because she goes for broke. She is all in during those scenes. She is really chained naked in that pool of water at my feet, writhing around. Between takes, she refused to get up and do anything. She needed to stay in it, which was amazing to see. But during that whole scene, I'm shut down. I have to just remain completely blank and just stare straight ahead. And that gets to be difficult, especially when you see what she was putting herself through, because she goes to levels that I told Eben and Chris, I said, you guys are lucky, because a lot of actresses you'd bring in wouldn't be going for broke like she is. She is all in. Mm-hmm. And,
that was really evident when I was there, because I told her, like, I think people overuse the term scream queen, like, everyone who's in a horror movie, they're a scream queen, but she definitely earned the title in that movie.
Yeah, she did. She was put through hell through the whole movie, and it's always her crawling, digging, rolling around, and that was wonderful to work with. I actually listened to her interview she did with you a little bit ago, and I can attest to that's how she liked things. She liked to be always in character. She had me stalking her around the studio we shot in. Mm-hmm. And it took a little bit for me to get into that, because it feels, I walk into a room and a woman looks at me and starts crying, I start feeling bad.
Right.
And, but it's what she needed. It's what she wanted. She wanted to stay amped up. And I'm glad I was able to help her with that, because our scenes are just so polar opposite. She's all emotion and explosion, and I'm just dead. So it's wonderful.
Yeah, that really added a lot to the movie, and I like how they spread those scenes out throughout the movie.
Yeah, they really did, because the movie is kind of all over the place. It's funny at times, it's dramatic at times, it's pure slasher at times, and I enjoy that. I enjoy how they mix it all together, because you have fun with it. It's a late 70s, early 80s slasher throwback, and it feels like it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, the movies, I think both of us are I think we're similar age. Like, we grew up with that's what most of those slasher movies were. They'd have a lot of comedy in them, but they'd also have a lot of, really just gore and nastiness to them. So it would be a combination of everything. Yeah,
I think you need the balance. I certainly know in my writing, usually there's a smile behind a lot of it, and that's how you get away with certain aspects. And it's great, though, because when Hanukkah hits with the horror and the darkness, it really hits. Mm-hmm. And to feel the audience kind of feel those scenes, especially the one later on in the movie, I won't spoil it, but the big gore gag later on is it's just fun to watch.
Yeah, it's a really tremendous scene to see. I agree, and I also think like kind of what you're saying there. If you have the comedy, then when you do hit with the horror, it hits you more because like you're kind of having a good time, and then wow, there's something maybe you didn't expect.
Yeah, it's the roller coaster effect. Sometimes you're going up, sometimes you're going down. You need both for it to work, and the balance was great. And fuck for me, I mean, listen, anything I do in this industry is ridiculous to me. I find it hard to believe that I get a chance to play it all. So doing a movie where Sid Haig is my dad, Caroline Williams is my mom, PJ Souls is in it. I mean, Charlie Fleischer. It's really fucking kind of stupid. I just sit there going, what the fuck? Right. How did this happen?
Because I know you from Rock and Shock originally, and you'd be there every year, and I knew you as a writer and stuff. So how did you go from writing weird horror novels to becoming an actor?
Well, basically through conventions. I mean, I was lucky that when I first started writing, which again was a complete fluke. I mean, I started writing short stories just because of a message board. And my ultimate goal was if I was in one book that got sold and somebody bought it and enjoyed it, then I was a success. And anything beyond that was just gravy. And so I started doing shows, meeting people. I was lucky enough to get to know some of the actors. Certainly, I owe a lot of my career to Sid Haig. Mm-hmm. Very early on, he did an introduction to one of my books. And when we would tour shows together, we would set up next to each other. We would hang out. We would do vacations between shows. And being accepted by Sid kind of gained acceptance through everybody. So I started getting offered like little cameos, little things. And in the Minnesota scene especially, we had some friends that were working on movies. So they brought me in to play a killer in like Pajama Party Massacre and Strip Club Slasher and stuff like that. Which was just fun to do, and that graduated into that's mostly what I do now. I mean, it's rare that I do fiction anymore because I find screenwriting to be much more enjoyable. It's easier, and people don't really buy books anymore. Mm-hmm. I mean, the last book I had was I, Survivor, which I co-wrote with Adam Green, which is the Victor Crowley book. And yeah. I'm very proud of that. We put together a fantastic book, and the hardcovers run sold well, but beyond that, it's been a struggle because people just don't read. So I graduated towards cameos, getting hooked up with some people. I was attached to a lot of projects that never happened. I did a project 12 years ago with John Buechler and Kane Hodder that's never been released, and got used to that. There's highs and lows. Mm-hmm. And,
I'll say I know say you get used to it, but I would assume that's got to be hard to deal with. You do, especially like if you're a big horror fan, you grew up a horror fan, you get to be in these movies with Sid and stuff. Your movie with Kane Hodder and it never comes out. That's got to be rough.
It's a bummer because you worked hard on it. You want to see it come out, and there's so many empty promises and so much bullshit in this industry. And when everybody starts out, you want to believe everything. And then as you go, you start transitioning to going, okay, I'm kind of going to look at everything not necessarily in the negative, but more realistic. And it's especially been tough in LA because like Sarah, who has a role in Hanukkah, like I said, is my lady of 10 years. She's moderately good looking, and we've enjoyed our time together. And we moved to LA to kind of just go for broke, figuring that if we can find a way to just pay bills, we are successes. But moving to LA, you find that the scene out here is so fractured. It is like a junior high lunchroom. Every group hates other groups. There's so much drama. There's so much bullshit that we just wanted to form our own kind of group with real friends. And we've been lucky enough to find that, which allows us at least once a year to do a movie with friends that we know is everybody's doing it for the right reasons. We're having fun. And to a certain extent, that was even Hanukkah because it was a lot of people that I knew. I knew Eben. I knew Chris. Chris's wife, Courtney's awesome. Eben's wife is awesome. And then, working, I didn't have scenes with Sid, but being able to kind of in his last movie play his son, for me was just kind of a full circle moment because he goes all in that movie. He is all in
definitely.
too. I mean,
I think he's very. I think it's very. I mean, but at that stage of his career, I mean, you can't say someone's really courageous, but I still think that took a lot of guts to be like that frail on camera.
No, it is the first time you see it, you gasp. And I know for a fact that they had a double for him for some of that, but he refused because he wanted to do it. And that was always Sid. Sid was a proud guy. And, there'll never be another Sid Haig. And at the same point, the flip side is also Dick Miller. I mean, those are two of the biggest character actors of all time.
Yeah.
Sharing a final movie was, I mean, I watched Dick scene, and, the guy was 90 years old. And at one point he dropped something on the floor and he bent over and picked it up. And I was like, fuck, I'm 44. I can't even do that.
Right. I just turned 44, so I was correct about similar age.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I turned 44 on Friday the 13th.
Oh, okay. Oh, excellent. Well, that's very fitting. All right. Yeah. Mine was February 19th, so not that long.
Oh, well, happy birthday.
Thank you. You as well.
And we have a similar journey too in losing weight. You've lost a lot of weight.
Yeah, I lost 100. I was about 340, and now I'm 195, which is very strange. And I was asking you about health, because I know yourself lost a lot of weight, and you had a lot of health problems. I know physically you weren't doing well for a long time.
Oh no, I've lived a life of pain. I mean, when I was a kid, I got my scrotum sac ripped open by a goat at a petting zoo. I mean, there's so many things I've been through, but the main thing is my spinal. I hurt my back playing football in high school, and I've had to have 4 spinal surgeries, and I'm walking again. And before the last one, I knew it was going to be bad. I'd been in a walker for about a year, and I would collapse and I couldn't get up, and it was bad. I knew this was going to be the one to hopefully finally get me back on my feet a little bit, and going through that, I said, you know what? I also was diagnosed with diabetes. And
I was too, actually, in November. November 2018.
Yeah, and that was the moment I went, you know what? I got to change. I took the meds for a week. It didn't react well. I was getting sick. So I said, you know what? I'm just going to change what I eat, what I do. I started walking. I started cutting out carbs. Yeah,
same exact. Yeah.
And
sorry to interrupt you. The same thing.
No, that's why I brought it up, because we share similar paths with that. I'm sure it was the same for you. I'd always wondered in my head, because I was always a big guy. I was 340. And I always thought, am I the guy, though, that's just going to keep eating till I die? And that was my way of going, listen, I have to change. And I changed. And it's amazing how the weight comes off if you just watch what you eat and you walk. That's it. That's the trick. Since then, the back's been better. The spinal surgery helped quite a bit. I'm fused in 4 levels, but it's been good. Now I've gained some of the weight back because of Crafty and movies, and it's so hard not to walk past and grab a candy bar here and there and justify. But I think for me, my frame, I was probably too small, and to be honest, my penis it just got too big. I mean, that's
right. Well, I have. Yeah, there are. Well, it's nice to tell a story. So we're at the movies. I was at the movies. My brother went to the bathroom. I came back. I was like, wow, they must really have the water high in the toilets here. I was like, my junk was hitting the water, and I've never had that experience before. And my brother was just like, no, it's because you've lost a lot of weight. And I was like, nah, I don't know. So I looked this up, and it was like, it's according to science. I'm not making for every 30 pounds you lose, you're supposed to gain an inch of penis length. And I've lost 145 pounds, so you can do the math out there.
Yeah. So that's judging from where you probably started to now, that's like 6.5 inches.
Right. Yeah. So I'm not sure if science is exactly right, but we'll go with that. Yeah.
I think it's definitely right to start. Because it's not that it gets bigger; you have access to more of it.
Right.
Not as much turtles.
Right.
And but it's true. And be honest, Sarah said you need to gain like 30 pounds back because you have an inch too much.
Right.
And I love her, so I did it.
That's very nice of you. It's very very kind and considerate of your lady friend.
Well, it was her birthday, and I know she was looking forward to something, so that's what I gave her.
Yeah, I'm also 5'4", by the way, so the 340 was quite large on a 5'4" man. Well, 5 foot 3/4.
Okay, yeah, that's I'm about a foot taller, so Yeah, I mean, I never looked as big as I was, I think, but it definitely, I mean, I have arthritis in my hips. Both my hips need to be replaced. That extra weight just does so much. And it's amazing when you lose the weight and you pick up like gallons of milk, how much you were really fucking carrying.
Yeah, I've noticed. I've had the same experience. Or if I put some in my backpack and you think, well, this is like, 10 pounds or whatever, you're a ham or something. And you think, well, I've lost 14 of these hams.
Yeah. It's crazy. And especially with the walking, because like I'd always look at people and you watch movies and people go, oh, I'm going to go take a walk. And I'm like, that's bullshit. Who goes for walks? Nobody's going to why would you want to walk? Because I'd never went for a walk without being in severe pain.
Uh-huh.
And then you quickly realize, well, shit, there's a whole world to discover. People watching, listening to music.
Oh, yeah.
We go hiking out here a lot because there's so many trails, and it helps, especially in LA, to center yourself, to get out of the bullshit and just go somewhere, see a little nature and breathe. Like we go to Franklin Canyon all the time, and that's the RV park from Friday the 13th Part 5.
Oh, nice.
So it's wonderful to, walk through there playing Friday the 13th music while I'm sweating, and I have kind of resting dick face, so I always kind of look like I'm pissed off.
Right.
And randomly rounding a corner, and there's a group of tourists, and there's Friday the 13th playing. I look pissed off. It's fun to do.
Yeah.
Sometimes Sarah will go running, and I'll chase her, and it turns into a thing. But
So, real quick about this before I forget about the craft food, because when I was out to see Hanukkah, I was there because the next day I was filming my first feature film.
Oh, congratulations!
Thank you. It was a great experience, and so it was the first time I was ever on set. For more than like a day, just doing something. This was like an actual movie. And so at first, I had already lost, a lot of weight. So I was really trying to, I can't eat bad here. But after a day, I just gave up and said, after the movie's over, I'll go back to no carbs and eating well and stuff. Because it was impossible to really eat very well while you're on set.
No, it's carbs. The food you eat is great. It's available. And a lot of times you're so busy, you're running all over the place that you just got to grab something and go. And it ends up being candy bars and all that kind of shit. And it's hard to say no. I mean, the food is great. Now, I've always allowed cheat days because I think if you try to cut everything out, you're just fucking yourself. Mm-hmm. But you augment it. You go, okay, today I'm going to cheat, but that means tomorrow I'm going to do extra. Mm-hmm. And the food can be... On some of the sets, I mean, I've done some background on stuff out here too, on big stuff. Mm-hmm. And like, I was lucky enough to be on the last day of Twin Peaks, and it was principal photography wrap that day. So I saw the speeches and everything, but the food they had, I mean, it was lobster. It was, you name it. Mm-hmm. It was fucking ridiculous. Personal pies baked for you. And I mean, they were just dumping all their budget they had left that day, I'm sure, but I bring Twin Peaks up because I think we share a connection that we're movie nerds. So
definitely.
For me, I tried fucking my ass off to get onto even background on Twin Peaks, because if I popped up on screen for even a second, the nerd in me is like, I'm part of that world now, which is, kind of how I look at everything.
Yeah, that's awesome. Did you pop up?
I did. In one of the Vegas scenes when Cooper's looking and lights are flashing above people's heads playing slot machines.
Yeah, I know the scene. Yeah,
I'm the biker in that one. Yeah, it gets the thing above my head.
I'll be honest. Every once in a while, I do think if I'm watching something, it's like I think that might be Joe Knetter, because you are you stand out. I mean,
and almost always it's the biker outfit, or as I think I did 7 days on Criminal Minds as a prisoner, and Angie Tribeca, shit like that. I'm usually a prisoner or a biker. I very rarely get the romantic leads. But, it's fun. It's just, moving here too, the background stuff was great because, one, you have to hustle for money, but two, you see how the big shit goes and all the moving parts and the amount of people, and you start looking around going, holy fuck, this definitely isn't back in Minnesota making $5,000 movies.
Mm-hmm. Do you wish you moved out sooner? Because I have a lot of friends who do the same thing, made local stuff or whatever. Then they eventually move out to LA, and most of them tell me they wish they did it, earlier.
I don't, because part of my change with you know, the losing weight and all that was cutting back on the drinking quite a bit.
Same with me as well. Yeah.
If I came out here 10 years ago, I probably would be dead. I mean, I'm honest about it. Like I've known more at conventions for partying than anything else. That was my thing over the years. And conventions used to be way different in the early 2000s. It was all about the party. You know, all the guests would be in a room and everybody'd be partying. And I had a habit of drinking and then taking. Like people would hand me handfuls of pills and I would just take them all. I wouldn't even think about it. So I actually have conventions where I've blacked out the whole weekend. I have no memory of the whole weekend. So I was on a destructive path that had I come out to here, it wouldn't have ended well for me. I think I came out here at the right time, that I was centering myself a little bit. Plus I have 3 daughters I was raising. So I needed to make sure they were in a good place and ready to live their lives on their own. And then I said, yeah, fuck it. Let's just go. And actually, the deciding factor was snow in October. We got a bunch of snow in October, and the year before it snowed till May, and I was like, I'm not doing this anymore.
Yeah, I've noticed too, since I've lost a lot of weight. I used to never get cold, but now it's like I see why people don't like the cold now. And I jokingly, but really it's true, I've apologized to anyone who's ever shared like a hotel room with me, because I used to like turn the AC down as low as possible, and they'd be like, dude, it's like way too cold in here. And I think they're crazy. But now I'm like, oh yeah, I see why people don't like the cold.
Yeah, because when you have the extra weight, you always sweat. Now my argument to your defense of that would be, okay, you can make the room cold and they can use blankets to get warmer. But if you're warm, you're fucked.
That's very true.
But like, I still wear shorts. I own 1 pair of pants. When I moved to LA, I'm like, nope, coat's gone, pants are gone. That's it. It's never going to get cold enough. And I'll never admit this to Sarah, I do get cold. Once you lose the weight, you start feeling cold.
Yeah. About the drinking and something I've talked a lot about, drinking a lot in the past. I don't normally talk about. I also used to do a lot of pills too. I don't like to talk about it on my Facebook because my family's on there and I don't like my mom to see that stuff. But when you started to do the convention, same thing. When I started to do I would always party a lot at the conventions. And then when I started doing them after I stopped drinking, I did feel like, are people going to think I'm boring, or am I not going to be fun to be around? Was that hard to do the conventions again once you stop drinking and doing things?
No, because like the conventions, I still drink a little, but I'll be honest. I've smoked pot since I was 12 years old, and I eat a lot of edibles. So I still do that. So that at least, helps me to be, a little more normal than, because I'm a weird guy. And weed almost helps me kind of reel it in a little bit. So I still have that. I mean, there's definitely the first few. And even in my history, there were times there'd be shows where maybe a night I didn't want to drink. And everybody would be freaked out, like, what's wrong with Joe? What's going on? And you'd feel weird. And then I'd say, okay, fuck it. I'll get fucked up. Yeah. Because that's what you're known for. And you have expectations of that. But never really felt the pressure because I'm really high. I eat I eat edibles almost every day unless I'm working. If I'm working or writing or anything, I don't. So, but it's interesting to look at the world when you're not that guy anymore. Yeah. And then you start hearing stories where you go, yeah, there were times where I thought I was being funny, but I was kind of a dick.
Right. Yeah. It's exactly the same. I know exactly what you're saying. It was not the same idea, but I remember it was 2 years ago I did karaoke at a festival here, Boston Underground Film Festival, and I did Monster Mash, and I thought it was awesome, and everyone loved it. I did it again last year, and this time I did it sober, and I was like, oh my God, that sucked. But everyone else still loved it, and I realized, I'm the only one sober here. Yeah. And, so karaoke is not very fun sober.
No, you think about everything you're doing, and yeah, I can imagine. I would never do karaoke, as weird as I am, because I was painfully shy growing up. I mean, I wouldn't talk in front of anybody. Drugs actually helped me break that down, and being able to speak in front of people and talk and stuff. But like, karaoke is the one thing I would never do. Just for whatever reason, I just couldn't imagine getting up and doing it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But I have no problem, getting up and doing readings at shows or panels or or anything like that. But just for whatever reason, it's the karaoke that gets me.
Mm-hmm. How did you start doing the conventions? Like, did you go to them just, like as a guy and then eventually start selling your books at them, or how did that work out?
Never. The first book I was a part of was called Splat Books. It was a book called Self-Mutilation. And me and another writer from the book got a table at Cinema Wasteland. Mm-hmm. This was 2003. I had never been to a convention before. And he was from that area, so I drove out from Minnesota. We had a fun weekend, and I thought, oh, fuck, this is what I've been missing. Because growing up, I grew up in a small town in Minnesota called Iota, Minnesota. And, I mean, it was small. And there weren't horror fans, so it was really just kind of me. And occasionally I'd have a friend that liked horror, but it was kind of a dirty secret. So getting to go to a convention and seeing everybody celebrating what you love was awesome. And I actually regretted never doing them before. But I jumped right in as a table guy behind the table. Mm-hmm. And we sold 3 books that weekend in 3 days. But we were thrilled because that was 3 people that bought something we created. Yeah, and we didn't expect any of that to happen. Mm-hmm. And then from there, it just started more and more shows. I was booking tables on my own. And then eventually I started getting booked for shows where they'd cover everything. And I have no delusions of grandeur. Most of that was because I was friends with the other guests. Mm-hmm. That's why I would get tables. I would set up next to Sid, and people would treat me a certain way. And but that's kind of the business. You can mm-hmm. be hugely talented and go nowhere. It is kind of who you know. And then there's a certain amount of luck that just goes with it. Yeah.
And I think there's also something about being some of the people like to be around at a convention.
Yeah.
Because I've seen people who are just you would consider big names, but if they're there and not talking to anybody, it's like, well, that's not that exciting. But then people might be lesser names to other people, but they add a lot to the atmosphere, and then you see them everywhere.
Yeah, no, that Sid Haig, Bill Moseley are 2 great examples of. Oh, yeah. They always have lines at their tables because you're getting who they are, and they always bring it and they always have fun. I mean, in theory, those characters should have ran their course and started dying down at the shows, but they never really did. Mm-hmm. And you'll get other people that certainly have been in bigger movies that are reading newspapers behind their table. Right. And clearly you don't want to walk up to them at all because you feel like you're interrupting them. And it's a bummer. It's a bummer that's that way. But, at the end of the day, for some people, it's a business, and I understand that. I always went into it for fun. I mean, anything I get involved in, what I want out of it is one memory that I'll never forget. Mm-hmm. If I can leave with one memory that I'll remember the rest of my life, then that was a successful adventure. And you get that at conventions. There's so many crazy things I've seen over the years that are just, I could never talk about them, but they're so fucked up. And, just getting, I mean, you're sitting there with your heroes. Mm-hmm. And to be accepted and be around them. And then you realize at the end of the day, we're all just fucking people. Mm-hmm.
Sid was my first guest ever on Without Your Head. So we owe a lot to Sid as well on 2006, our first guest. And it was kind of like a little nervous, calling up Sid for the first guest. And like you said, though, he's just this normal guy, really. And really made it, just a fun experience talking to him. So like, how did you just like get along with him at the conventions and kind of hit it off? Like how did that kind of bond?
I was on his message board because I was a fan when he had his original message board. And I just wrote him, said, hey man, I have a book. I don't know if you do an introduction. And he gladly did it. The next show I saw where I first met him was a Chiller Fango. Chiller and Fango paired up on 2 shows, January shows. And I went out to New York and met Sid there, and we just bonded. I mean, we just had a good conversation. We both kind of come from the same place mentally and how we think about things. And we just had fun. I mean, Sid liked to have fun. He was the life of the party. He's the one who threw a lot of the room parties at the conventions. And, he'd have his gumball martinis he'd be making. And you just hear about everything because he worked on everything. He was just a genuine guy. And the stories he would tell would just blow your mind. And we just bonded, I mean, really as a friendship. And we always stayed in touch. we'd always look forward to seeing each other at shows. And like I was married at the time. My ex-wife was one of the bridesmaids at the wedding when he married his wife, Susie. And, it was a shame. I mean, we knew that he was sick but he fought so hard. The joke was he's going to outlive all of us because that's Sid. He's going to find a way. So, when I saw him he had a Lifetime Achievement Award out here at a festival a month before he passed or so. And when I saw him there, it was, I knew I was saying goodbye. I mean, I knew that's what that was. And it was sad to see him go, but the way to look at it is, I mean, the guy was 80. Mm-hmm. He did so many amazing things in his life, and he wouldn't want anybody to be upset or sad. Mm-hmm. He'd want us to just keep going. So, I mean, I think it's crazy and weird at the same time that we ended up working together finally on a movie. Because I don't count Death House.
I'm glad you said that, not me, because I wouldn't want to count it either. But okay.
No. I mean, we were not connected in that movie at all. But this was one where although we didn't have scenes together,
it's definitely a big connection. Yeah, it
was a connection, and he had wrote me afterwards after seeing the first cut of how proud he was, and it was a wonderful. Man, it was a wonderful thing because that movie was just so what I love. I mean, I'd played slashers and like really, really low budget stuff, but never one that had these kind of people and this kind of talent around it. And I mean, it was just amazing to see the effort everybody put in. I mean, fuck PJ Souls.
Yeah. And the people that are in it that are names. Sometimes you could see someone have a cameo and you could tell they're just there because, and that's fine and all. But everyone in Hanukkah, really, you could tell they were giving it their all and having fun or just really giving it all their all. Like Caroline Williams and Sid Haig are really giving it their all in their scenes.
They absolutely are. And you're right, because on the indie world, there are the convention movies where you'll see the people pop up for 3 seconds, and that's to put their name on the box, but they don't really play a character. Mm-hmm. That's why I love The Devil's Rejects so much. That movie for me is Rob Zombie's masterpiece. I agree. Of every character he's put in there is playing a role. Mm-hmm. They're not just cameos. Even if they've only got like a 30-second scene, you get the character of what they are and what they're playing, and it doesn't feel gratuitous or just thrown in to put a name on a box. So for me to be around those people was, I mean, ridiculous. I spent a lot of time with Victoria in the cabin stuff. And then, the rest of the kids who all did a fantastic job. Robert was great. Luis was great. Everybody in the movie was really going to town. Sadie Katz, her eyes when she's tied up in the cabin, and mini spoiler, it totally channels Marilyn Burns from Chainsaw Massacre, with just the horror in her eyes as they're darting around the room. So I'm excited to see it finally come out, and it comes out, I think, in a week or something, right?
Yeah, it comes out like this coming Tuesday, which is let me get the date here, the 17th.
17th, and then we're doing a signing at Dark Delicacies here in LA on the 18th.
Oh, nice.
Eben, PJ, Robert, Harry Manfredini and I are going to be there signing the Blu-rays and DVDs. So that's the 18th at Dark Delicacies in Los Angeles. So I'm excited to see how people are going to react because, the modern new horror audience, they like cut. And I'm hoping, the old school people I think are going to enjoy Hanukkah. And I think it's a good way for the new school to see what kind of classic slashers are like. Yeah. Because it blows my mind when I talk to horror fans that are, 18, 19, 20 at conventions and stuff, and they've not seen every Friday the 13th movie. Right, I'm like, what do you mean you haven't seen every fucking Friday the 13th movie? Yeah. I don't understand.
At the very base level, if you're a horror fan, you've seen like all the franchise movies.
I would think so, but it's just those movies meant so much to us that for them it's the, you know, we've seen every Insidious, we've seen every Conjuring, and I enjoy those movies, but you know, for me, I always gravitate towards the classic slashers. That's my thing.
It's funny when you mention that, because every once in a while I'll see younger people on Facebook and they'll list like the list of like the best Insidious or that whole like the Conjuring like universe. And I'll just look and I'll be like, I don't really remember the different, you know, which one's which, honestly.
Yeah.
But then I think, well, it's just, you know, that's the movies they grew up with, it, you know, and these are the movies like I grew up with.
Yeah. And certainly if they were like, you show this generation Friday the 13th, maybe 3, 4, 5, they're going to watch all of them and not really be able to tell between them, because they are kind of wash, rinse, repeat with little things, but they just worked so well. And for me, I was just so excited. And also to see Eben and Chris get their movie made, because I love when people have dreams and they're able to kind of put them together. So, and then fucking Manfredini. I mean, I've known Harry for years, but to have him do a score. Yeah,
that's awesome.
And it's very much Friday the 13th cues. And I mean, even sitting here, it's just kind of ridiculous. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah, and I've known Chris and Eben for a long time too, and so it was very cool to see their movie. Eben, I mean, Chris has he has a short scene, but his delivery is amazing in the movie. His little short scene as Santa Claus.
It was so hard not to laugh through that. I mean, it was awesome. That was a fun scene to do.
Yeah. Another thing I was thinking about when you're talking about the Friday the 13th movies, like when. You know, now you can just watch anything on demand or Netflix or Shudder, you know, streaming, whatever. But like when I was a kid, like every time there's a Friday 13th, they would show, you know, all of them in a row, whatever it was, the first 2 or the 3 or 4, you know, each year would be a few more, and then you'd watch them on TV. But that would be like the only time you'd really get to see them, unless you went and rented them at the VHS store.
Yeah, which is what we would do. I mean, it was always USA. That Friday the 13th or around Halloween, you'd get. Usually it was back then it was 1, 2, and 3, and then it graduated. I mean, I saw Friday the 13th 3 or 4 times at a drive-in theater. I was lucky enough to go do that, and nowadays, I mean, that's what the kids don't understand now. Like I miss the video store days of Discovery.
Oh yeah.
Everything now, you kind of know what it is. It's rare to pull something up that you don't know, and kind of go into a blind. And I mean, I still love the old stuff. I mean, shit, 2 years ago, New Beverly did Friday the 13th 1 through 8, all on 35 millimeter.
Oh, nice.
Overnight, and we went and did that whole thing, and I just sat there grinning because it took me back to seeing those things and experience them. I mean, we had friends back home in Minnesota that on Friday the 13th, we'd watch all of them in a row. We would do 21 hours of it. And it was always amazing. And Friday the 13th, I brought it up a lot. That is my dream gig. Is to do something connected to Friday the 13th sometime. That is my pinnacle, which is weird to a lot of people to go, that's the movie I want to do. That's for me, that's the top.
Yeah. That was when I was in LA. I'm in Massachusetts, but when I was in LA, there's one thing I was really jealous of is all the movies that, like, pretty much every night you could go see an older movie in 35 millimeter. And I have a little bit of that here in Coolidge After Midnight does it, but it's not quite the same as out in LA.
Well, and what I love about it is the crowds are into it. They hoot and holler, they have fun. I'm still waiting because when we first moved here, I think the second year here, the Egyptian Theater did a month of 80s horror. Which was double features of horror, 80s horror every night. And it was fucking amazing to go and see, you know, The Thing and The Blob and they haven't quite brought it back, but I mean, Beyond Fest puts up some horror there, here and there too. But to me, I still want to see movies in the theater. That's
I agree.
I want.
There's no better way to see a movie than on the big screen, because you're immersed in it. You can't like escape. Well, you could if you're an ass and start using your phone, but you're going to, you know, it's right there in front of you. There's a real escape from it. And like everyone, I watch stuff on my TV and I don't watch movies on my phone. I don't really understand that. But if you get to see a movie on the big screen, even if it's a movie you've seen a million times, it's like it's a totally different experience.
No, it's how it's meant to be. It's cinema. It's pure cinema. And like TVs now are big. I mean, I remember when I was a kid, I had a 13-inch TV.
Yeah.
Where to get past channel 13, you had to go to the second dial.
Right.
And now you know kids have. I mean, you can buy a 65-inch TV for $400.
Mm-hmm.
So you almost have a big screen in your house. But to me, it's sitting with people, having the popcorn, just collectively sharing an experience is what I find beautiful. And LA still has that. There's still magic to the city. And you just got to wade through the bullshit to find it. And we have, you know, I get to do shit all the time that is just so stupid. And I sit there going, how the fuck is this happening? But I understand what it is. And a lot of it too is you got to work hard and you got to just not give up. I know so many people that have moved to LA and left because it didn't work out. And I get that, but it's not going to work out right away. It's going to take years. I mean, this last year is the first year Sarah and I have been able to fully support ourselves working in the industry. And it took a long time for that to happen, but we also know that can change. In 6 months, it could shift back. Because when I was doing the book tours, all those years of conventions, I ran an Arby's. And then after that, I ran a medical factory that dealt with catheters, which always made people laugh when they read some of my books and saw how fucked up everything was. But, it's just, you know, keep going. And I mean, I've followed your story a little bit with your weight loss and now getting into the acting and stuff. And I think you're going through the same thing where all of a sudden you go, holy fuck, this is nothing I never imagined would happen.
No, especially, it's weird. I think when it's happening, you don't think that so much, but then like when you look back over this year, just when I was out walking today and I was like, I can't believe all this happened in 1 year. It's really, it kind of almost, you know, you kind of tear up and stuff. It's just like, it's really, I mean, the last movie I did, it was the Greek. I know you've done a movie with him as well, Michael St. Michael's, but it's like,
Michael's
yeah.
great.
And I was like, I mean, I love the Greasy Strangler, and like I just did a movie with the Greasy Strangler. Like it's just really weird to think about.
The Greasy Strangler. I've shown so many people that movie. I absolutely adore that movie because it's just insane. And Michael's awesome. He came out and did a one-day part in a movie I wrote called Blind.
Yeah, which I really want to see because I like everyone involved. I like Marcel Waltz, who directed it, and I like you, and I love Michael St. Michael and Sarah French and everybody. So I need to see that. Yeah,
we're happy with it. It did. We did a festival run. It won. We got 21 awards, including Best Feature for drama, for thriller, for horror, and for film noir. Because it's a weird. It's a weird movie. It's not what anybody would expect, but we should have news in the next couple of weeks on our distro for that. And I'm really looking forward to seeing the reaction to that one also, because it is such a weird movie. It's more of a drama thriller. But Michael was great to bring in because I knew I wanted to work with him, and I'm going to work with him again and give him something he can chew on a little more. But he's just such a nice guy. And,
he's great.
When I met both of those guys the first time, I was like, holy shit, they're kind of just extensions of their character.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. He is very much the Greasy Strangler.
Yeah.
He's not strangling anybody, but yeah, it's a very similar sense of humor.
Yeah. Yeah. That we know of. I mean,
that we know of. Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Legally we'll say that, but, but he's just a fun guy. And he's got a lot of stories too about shit he's done. And,
oh yeah, yeah. Have you ever been? I don't know if you've ever been to his apartment.
No, we're supposed to have gone a couple times, but every time we have to cancel for some reason.
Yeah, it's just wall to wall art, and he's got like pictures of him with Dali, and I was like, I did not expect this. Like it was just this wild place, and he's got stories for everything that's in there, and he's just a really interesting guy.
No, and that's what I love because like I love the Greasy Strangler. The first time I watched it, I was like, okay, well, this is I've heard this is weird, and sometimes I don't like weird movies, but that one just hit, and from the moment it started, I was like, oh my god, I'm in love with this thing. And the first time he goes into the car wash, I was like, yep, this is my new movie. This is the new movie that I show everybody.
Yeah, and you always get one or two reactions. They're totally with you, or they're just like, no, I don't. Why did you like this? No one's just like, it's all right. It's it's a movie you're either really gonna love or you really. My brother really hates it. I have to admit, but he was just like, it's like he was like, well, the scenes go on forever, and I'm like, yeah, that's why they're so hilarious. But
yeah,
he was
it totally reads that the actors are waiting for the cut, and it doesn't happen, so they keep doing these weird looks, and it works so well to just because on paper, man, that's an insane movie to try to shoot. I mean, just batshit insane, and they pulled it off. I mean, and they got distribution through a good company.
Yeah. The whole that movie even exists is just awesome to me.
No, it's amazing. I'm glad it exists, and I forever will show people that as a way to experience who I am. You know, and it's I got the same as you. There's people love it, people hate it, but kind of that's what you want, you know.
Yeah.
Going back to wrestling terms, you don't want a non-reaction.
Right. You don't want people just sitting there. Yeah.
You want cheers or you want booze. And you know, that's and it's sometimes people pull out big fake spiders and out of cages that you've been waiting 4 months to see, and then you're like, oh, okay, all right. Yeah,
that was so. And then they totally end the story the next week.
Yeah, let's just crush it. It was so fake looking, though.
It really will go down. Like, at the time, I just thought it was so bad, and it still is bad. But I think over time, I'll always remember it. Is like, do you remember that time when they just brought out the big spider? And I think I'll enjoy it more as the years pass, just as something that was so bad that it made me laugh.
They're like the Mark Henry hand. You'll go back and I like Eric Rowan. He's a Minnesota boy.
I do too.
I'm worried he's gonna get buried now, I think.
Yeah, I think so, because I know, you know, they're really building up Drew McIntyre, obviously, but still he was just pretty much squashed.
Yeah, and Drew deserves it. I'm looking for him. And you know, I'm enjoying wrestling now. I was kind of in a lull for a while. And I go through peaks. Like, I mean, I love the 80s, and then we got into the early 90s. I went away, and then Attitude Era, I was back, and then left for a while. But I'm excited by it. But especially for me, it's NXT and AEW are really fucking delivering.
I agree. Yeah, I love it. I was at the AEW show in Chicago was the last week or week before, the pay-per-view show. And the atmosphere for their live shows, I mean, they're awesome watching TV, but their atmosphere at the live shows, it's so amazing. It's almost, you know, this kind of talk about like watching a movie with a bunch of horror fans.
Yeah.
You're there with all these, you know, wrestling fans that really love the product and really want it to succeed and want everyone to succeed. And it's really just a fun time.
It is. It's for me. It like I've been to one AEW show. I went to the first big Vegas one, their first big show, and you watch it and it feels almost like a mix of WCW and ECW. From the production, you watch the Dynamite show. It's got the darkness of WCW, and I mean, I like the guys are going nuts, and I don't care what anybody says. I like the blood. I like the blood. I like blood and guts. If the guys are cool with doing it, there shouldn't be an issue. And I don't want to see somebody bite somebody on the neck and then clearly see there's no fucking wound in 40 shots.
Right.
Make it believable.
You know? Yeah, I agree. And I think about the ECW thing, too. Sometimes people overlook this about ECW, and they just do fixate on the blood, which was a big part of it. But everyone was, like, emotionally attached to all the characters in ECW and the promotion itself. Like, you really wanted you felt like you were part of ECW, and you really wanted it to succeed.
Yeah, the storytelling was fantastic. I mean, they knew how to sell a match. And for me, AEW is the closest to that, because the crowd doesn't chant. Nobody chants WWE.
No. Yeah.
But you get the AEW chants again. At least the first show I was at live.
Yeah, and stuff just kind of happens organically. Like people just suddenly start to sing Chris Jericho's theme song, and it just becomes a thing everyone does at all the shows. And it was, you know, it's a wild time.
No, and it was great to see Jericho back and Ambrose. I warned you that I talk a lot. So I don't know how the conversations generally go, but we're going to be all over the place.
That's how I like things. So it's totally
but
good.
If you notice, like every 10, 15 minutes, I bring Hanukkah back up, because not to forget that we're talking Hanukkah and how lovely that is and coming out. And I have one of the VHS, which I'm really proud of having.
Oh, I saw those at the last Mad Monster because Chris Odd had them on his table. A little funny thing was we were actually filming our last feature during Mad Monster Party, which Eben was very cool to let us do. And so I was in between James Balsamo and Chris. Our table where we're filming was between James Balsamo and Chris Ott. So on one side of me, I'm hearing like terrible puns. And the other side was he was streaming the Hanukkah trailer like nonstop. So I'm hearing like the Hanukkah music over and over.
Sure, with James's puns.
right. So,
and shout out to Balsamo.
I love Balsamo.
Came on Hanukkah and did a lot of stuff on Hanukkah too. And I've certainly set up near him before, and he's got his shtick.
Yeah.
And it works for him. So yeah, I could imagine between the two, it was probably,
Yeah, it was fun. I told that off air to Victoria, and she was like, "Oh, I'm sorry, you had to listen to me scream." Like I was like, "No, actually, I didn't mind that. It was just the music after a while." And then I was like, "Oh, that kind of makes you sound like I'm a psycho or so." Like I didn't mind you screaming the whole time, but
it was the beautiful, orchestra music. That's
what bothered me after a while. Right? Yeah.
And she screamed a lot, man. She was really in that water, and in the movie, the reason she's in the water is in the old school Jewish religion. When a woman would be on her period, you would take her to the rabbis and put her in water, and she would soak. And
I did not realize that.
And so that's what's representing is because in the movie she's on her period, and it was her idea to actually have a string hanging out because she wanted it to be realistic. Now we weren't going to show that, but she needed that for her character, and. I mean, man, what a trooper she was, just laying there writhing and the dirt rolling around. And it's awkward for me because it's just me and her in this little set, and I'm doing everything not to look at her, like between takes, because I'm like, Jesus Christ, we're in the Me Too generation. I don't even want to even glance in her direction and have it taken wrong. And then she spit on me, and I was like, okay, I can look at it.
It evens itself out. Yeah.
All right, she spit on me. I guess I can. Look in her eyes when I talk to her, at least.
Right. It's funny you mentioned that about the water because I didn't know that, and I don't think it was brought up in the movie, which I kind of like because so it's there like if you know that about the Jewish religion, and then if you don't know it, it doesn't it doesn't take away or anything from the movie.
Yeah, that was Eben's main goal with it was not to spoon feed that. Yeah. Those that follow the Jewish religion will get all of the references, but those that don't. It still works because it's still a girl chained in a little thing of water at my feet, and it's still creepy. Yeah. But somehow it's even more creepy when you think that's what they used to do. And I just had, this is another wrestling connection. The DVD cover's got a silhouette of me standing there in my wardrobe, and somebody just commented on it about stealing the Undertaker's look. And I was thinking, you really think we were going for Undertaker? This is something that's existed for thousands of years, but another wrestling Hanukkah connection, I guess.
That works.
To bring things full circle,
Right. Well, I have to bring this up. Was the vegan food all right on set for you?
Here's the thing. I did not like the vegan food. Mainly for me on the days I shot, it was generally pizza.
All right.
And the fake meat they used tasted like meat. No problem.
Yeah. It's a cheese.
The cheese is still too gummy for me. So it wasn't my favorite. I've had worse. And I ate it. I appreciate what they're doing with their veganism and all that. But I would not order it on my own. But I embraced the right to do that. They loved it.
Sure.
They brought it in. I ate it. The cheese is just gummy, and cheese is like my favorite food.
I agree. When I changed my diet, it is the main thing that I couldn't go without is pizza.
Yeah. And that's like we have a mod pizza right by where we live, and it's a little more healthy. You pick your own ingredients, and you feel a little better about it because, with pizza, it's the crust that's the worst thing.
Right. It's the carbs and the crust. Yeah, exactly. So in my mind, like if I eat thin crust pizza, I'm like, oh well, it's got less carbs. It's fine for me.
That's right. And some places now do the the chicken. It's the crust is made of chicken because you remove some of the carbs, but I can't imagine that's healthy.
No, I can't. That's eating, but like just a big giant piece of fried chicken. Like, I can't eat it. I know there was like the carbless wraps, and it was just this giant slice of cheese, and I was like, well, it can't be healthy to eat like a 12-inch slice of cheese.
No, probably not. Because that's the hardest thing. Because you go, okay, I'm gonna, you cut out sugar, and you're like, yeah, but really, you look at carbs. That's what you're looking at. Mm-hmm. And even with cereal, you look, okay, this is Wheaties. Oh, that's 40 grams of carbs. What are the, Fruity Pebbles, 22. Oh, well, I wouldn't have fucking expected that.
Yeah, it was I remember I was just comparing, like, it was like, you would think like a granola bar kind of thing is healthier but it has like it was like identical to just like a Snickers bar as far as like sugar and carbs and everything.
No,
I was like, this is no better for me. No,
those energy bar type things, like the Cliff Bar. Oh, this is healthy, and you look at that and you're like, fuck, that's 2 Snickers bars.
Yeah, that's not. Yeah, it's worse for you than if I was just eating candy bars.
Or and then they play the trick where you're like, okay, there's only 5 carbs in that, and then you look and go, oh, wait a minute, there's 20 servings per bar.
Right. Yeah. I've noticed that. Because I had actually my blood pressure is good now, but it was high for a while. And I remember I was eating pickles because I do like pickles and they're good snacks. And then certain ones I'd look and it would said like 25% of your sodium, and I was like, it's not too good. But then I'd look and it was like 9 servings in one pickle, and I was like, well, Jesus, that's like 2 days of my salt intake in this one pickle. I was like, I'd eat that.
Pickles, I ate a lot of pickles too when I was first losing weight because it is low calorie. You're going to lose weight. And I thought, okay, I'll deal with the salt later, the salt aspect later. But to me, I don't know why they're allowed to do that. I mean, clearly you're not going to, I guess they can say, well, you're going to slice a pickle to put on a burger. So it's really 3 little slices
But no one's going to cut like a pick. Exactly what I was like, who's going to cut a pickle into 9 pieces?
No, nobody's going to.
Yeah, and eat one piece. Like, I'll just eat this 1/9 of a pickle.
Yeah. What are they eating it like steak? That's weird. That's weird.
So, cutting your steak, your pickle with a fork and knife, which I like that imagery.
Yeah. Now that we mentioned that, it's gonna pop up in LA somewhere. A $40 pickle experience.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
So, what are you working on currently?
Currently, we have Blind coming out. That should be, we should have news about that soon. I did a werewolf movie last year directed by Thomas Haley that I wrote that stars Thomas, Jen Nangle, Sarah French, and Richard Grieco. So I'm excited about that. I mean, it's a werewolf movie with Richard Grieco. I mean, that's cool. Sweet. Yeah. And Marcel and I have 2 more projects this year we're working on. I can't really spoil what they are right now. But we've got 2 more movies scheduled for this year because Marcel's a good dude. He directed the fuck out of Blind. It's his vision. Him and Thomas Riss, the DP, made a beautiful movie, and
it's his vision of Blind.
Yeah. It's weird because he had, to tell you the story of Blind, he had a dream that he was shooting a movie in his house. Mm-hmm. And it was about a blind woman. In the dream, he had the crew and everybody there, and it was a blind woman and a guy trying to kill her. Mm-hmm. And the next night, he came over to my house, and we had pizza, Mod Pizza, the place I mentioned earlier, to throw a callback out there. But my OCD kicked in. I had to get rid of the pizza boxes. So we paused the movie, and he mentioned the dream, and we started talking about it. And we actually wrapped 5 weeks to the day later. So we went from his dream to wrapping a feature in 5 weeks. It was a breakneck pace. But what we learned in that is that we're close friends and we could work together really well. So I understand how Marcel does things and how he likes and how his vision is. So Marcel and I are definitely pairing up on a bunch more projects.
That's cool.
Because he comes from, which is funny because he's known from Germany as being the guy that does gore. Mm-hmm. And I'm known for being the guy that writes really fucked up shit. So we did a weird drama, which was wonderful because it pushed us both out of our normal elements. Yeah. And so definitely 2 more movies with him this year, and hopefully that's a relationship that continues in the future. Beyond that, let's see. the werewolf thing, Blind's coming out, Hanukkah's coming out. That's really it right now. I mean, I'm always looking for more work, depending on what's there, what's not there. But I'm not actively pursuing any because this year's covered with the 2. That should be good. And I'm one that likes to. I'm not a writer that just sits and writes screenplays. Mm-hmm. I typically write when there's an idea, and then I go for it. So this year's been busy. I mean, I've been writing since the middle of December. I haven't had a day off, and I just now got 2 weeks off where I'm not doing anything, and I'm actually getting pretty fucking bored. Mm-hmm. So who knows what else? Something else will pop up, I'm sure, or I might go back into stripping.
That'd be good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll try to make a trip back out to LA if that happens.
Oh, you want to come see it? It's wonderful.
Yeah.
You'll come up. We'll pretzel our cocks together and swing around that pole.
Yeah, we'll make enough money for the rest of the year. You won't have to worry about anything.
Are we allowed to say pretzel our cocks together anymore? As long as there's no salt, I think we're okay.
Right. Well, there's some of the carbs from the. Well, I guess there is no carbs because it's a cock pretzel.
Yes, and carbs. It's more protein that comes out than carbs.
That's right. So it's very healthy now that I think about it.
It is. I don't recommend sampling it. Because it's addicting.
Oh, that was almost a James Balsamo line, but I approve. When I was at Mad Matzo, after a while, I was around him for 3 days, and I just looked at him and just like, how does Eben stand you when you guys are working at the toy place? No, I'm just kidding though. But
yeah, no, it's nonstop, and he's quick with it.
Yes, he is. Yeah.
So whatever you say, he's going to have something, and with that being said, he's very similar to all of us that we joke around.
Oh yeah.
But you get on set, it's very people are usually blown away by me because they expect me to be weird and crazy. But when I'm working, I'm working. It's a professional environment. Mm-hmm. But when I'm not working, then I get to be me. Mm-hmm. I get to be a little more abnormal. But yeah, Hanukkah.
Yeah, Hanukkah comes out this Tuesday on Blu-ray, DVD, and video on demand. I can't wait to see the response to it because it's, I think it's going to be not a movie like The Greasy Strangler because obviously they're not anywhere near each other. But I think it's going to be a mix. Some people are going to love it. Some people aren't going to like it. Mm-hmm. And I know me, if I were to not have been involved and watch this movie, I would have a good time with it. Yeah. Oh, definitely. And there does seem to be there's definitely an audience of probably people like our age and stuff who grew up with the traditional slasher movies who like to see a return to that. So it definitely has an audience for it.
I think so too, and I hope it does well because as you saw in the closing credits, there's hopefully another one coming. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I would gladly put the robes back on and. Hopefully they've been washed since then because we only had one and we couldn't wash it during the shoot. So it adds to
the ambiance of the movie.
It did. It got pretty stinky, but most people couldn't smell it because of the big coat I was wearing, but I could.
But right.
It's the undershirts that were bad and that weren't exactly white shirts anymore. But I mean, fuck, man, we did the scene down with the Halloween hedge. Mm-hmm. That was insane. Other than I'm hiding behind the hedge for it, getting ready to do the take, and we're stealing the shot. I mean,
sure,
that's how it works. Uh-huh. And 2 people come walking up the sidewalk down the street, and I just kind of politely stood there and waited for them, and then they turn and go up the sidewalk into the house. And I'm like, well, fuck, here we go. We better get get out of here. But I'm sure they're used to that.
Yeah, I was just because when I was there and we were filming something, and I was for the movie, I was in I just dressed stupid. It was like in a overalls and also, and so we went to stop for coffee, and I was like, oh, maybe I'll change. And Michael and Sophia made the movie with like, it's LA, no one's gonna care what you're wearing. I was like, oh, okay, and they were right. No, nobody cared.
No, it's LA. It's my daughter was here last year visiting, and we were walking down the sidewalk like a block from where I live. Mm-hmm. And I pointed at the ground and said, "Watch out, you're going to step in shit." And then as we passed, I was like, "Oh, by the way, that was a big pile of human shit."
That was something when as soon as we went to Michael and Sophie's, because I stayed with them when we were doing the stuff. And at first I was like, "What's with Michael? He's just like obsessed with poop. He's like telling me to watch out for poop everywhere." And I'm like, "Yeah, okay." But then after I was there a couple of days, like, "Oh, okay, yeah, there is a lot of poop here in LA."
Anytime I see anybody on Hollywood Boulevard on the ground posing with the stars, I'm like, you're just laying in piss and shit. There's so much. We had last year twice a homeless guy that was mentally ill, obviously, throwing buckets of diarrhea on people.
Yeah, I remember seeing that. Like,
I mean, how do you get buckets of it?
Right. It's bad enough throw it, but then you start to think like, well, how does he even get to have this?
Because it's liquid too. It's not hardening, so it's not like you've collected it over months. No, it is. That's LA. You're used to a little bit of poop and pee here, and
it actually rained when I was there, and Michael's like, "It's this is very unusual," and I couldn't walk on Hollywood Boulevard. My shoes, I was just sliding everywhere, and he was like, "That's because they never wash this," and so when it rains, it's like all the goop. And at first I thought he was kidding, but I was like, "Oh no, I guess this is serious."
It's why, like, when we first moved here the first year, I remember I was outside my apartment, and there was one guy yelling from one apartment to the other about how they needed to get to Popeye's chicken as soon as possible because it was going to rain, and they needed to shut everything down. And I'm like, it's going to rain. You mean you guys don't go out and rain? And you quickly realize it generally doesn't rain here. It sprinkles. Occasionally you get a little bit of a real shower. But people lose their fucking minds. They will call in sick for work. They won't go. They drive 20 miles per hour on the highway with their hazards on. But I understand because the highway is the same as the Walk of Fame. They don't clean it. So when it does get wet, all the oil and shit gets slippery. But yeah, the poop and pee you get, you generally get used to that. We used to live in Studio City in a really nice neighborhood. And Sarah went out jogging one day, and there was a woman just shitting on the sidewalk in front of the house. She just had her dress up, just shitting, and she was like in business clothes. So you just kind of get used to weirdness like that. We have so many homeless here. There's like 80,000 homeless.
There was a lot there.
It's a challenge because most of them are mentally ill. They're hard to help, and
Yeah, there was another thing was Sophia did tell me like this isn't New England, so if you see a puddle, it's not from rain. It's not from rain or something, so avoid it because it didn't get there from the sky. And I was like,
no, it's probably piss. Usually, the rite of passage when people move here is the first time you see a homeless man jacking off on a bus bench because you'll at some point you're going to be driving past, you're going to be at a red light, you're going to look over, and somebody's just going to be sitting there having a wank. And
I was luckily I did not have that experience.
Yeah. Well, it'll happen.
There's always next time. All right.
Hopefully it's not me.
Like, oh, here's Joe. Let me go say hi to him. Hey, what's going on? Oh,
yeah.
Go the other direction.
Falling on hard times.
Yeah. Especially the hard part.
Yeah. See, I'm trying to get Balsamo going, but
he's loving this interview.
Yes, his name's been mentioned. During this interview, he's shot 3 movies.
I'm in a James Balsamo movie.
Awesome. Which one?
Ain't It Cool or Cool as Hell? Not Ain't It Cool. Cool as Hell 2.
Okay, very cool.
Which also the Greasy Stranglers in Michael St. Michael.
Awesome. I've never done a Balsamo. He's talked to me a couple times, but we've never been able to line up schedules. And plus, I truthfully, for me, I don't really like acting. I'd rather just write. But
I think I'm in that movie. I'm like at my heaviest. So I tell everyone I gained like 150 pounds just for
the role.
Right.
That's great. Well,
someone demanded it.
Method. And then you lost it for part 3.
Right. Exactly.
Awesome.
Very dedicated. So what was the, I know you're waiting for the reaction when the movie Hanukkah comes out Tuesday, but what was the reaction like at the premiere?
It seemed to be good. It's always hard to judge, especially with an LA crowd. Because while they go nuts for like retro screenings, the newer movies, you generally get like a polite clap. But the people I talked to seemed to really enjoy it. We'd had a screening the year before that was an assembly cut. And, wasn't near a finished cut. So this screening went much, much better. We had the Q&A. And, that was initially being shot for a DVD extra, but I don't believe we're going to be able to use that. I mean, fish flips and all, but but it seemed to be good. You never really know. You try to gauge the reaction. Like, that's the first time I had seen it since the assembly cut the year before. So I had no advanced knowledge of how it was turning out or how it was looking. Based on the assembly cut, I had an idea where they were going to go. So I was happy with it because I've certainly been to screenings of stuff I've been involved in where, 10 minutes into it, you're sitting there going, oh, fuck. How am I going to spin this one? Because, you have to support what you do.
Of course, yeah.
Like for the first year, anybody mentioned Death House, I was always like, "Oh, cool, yeah, that was fun." But now it's a year's passed, so I can I can talk about how terrible that movie was. And,
that was a movie I was really looking forward to, and had a lot of people in it.
Oh yeah,
I honestly was almost unwatchable.
It was, there's two scenes for me that I generally will show people, and that's a 7-minute shower scene where they're just showering and talking for no reason. And then the elevator shaft when they're sliding down the elevator shaft, firing guns at who knows what for 2.5 minutes without hurting their hands. Yeah. I did really enjoy the scene where there's like the creatures in the room screaming into the microphone. It really didn't have anything to do with the movie. But that was at least cool. But so from Hanukkah perspective, I was happy. I was happy for a lot of the people playing the kids haven't done many movies. Yeah. So I was thrilled that they got to experience that. Robert.
They were good in it too, honestly.
Yeah, Robert's great. Tolliver, Louise, Caleb, Adam. I'm just trying to run through all of the. Let's see who else. I mean, they're all good, and I like the youthful exuberance of them just being all in. Because it was, Catherine was great. I certainly think I go fuck. The first movies I was involved in were garbage, like shot on VHS type stuff. So you guys kind of just jumped into something that at least is professional, and they all did a good job. They're all great to work with. I had no issues with any of the cast. I didn't joke around with them a lot. I didn't do the full Kane Hodder, I'm not talking to you.
Right. You didn't pee on their stuff or anything.
Yeah. No, I didn't pee. Well, I didn't say that, but it's LA.
Why is there a puddle here?
Right. Welcome to Hollywood. And, but everybody was just happy to be doing a movie, and you don't always get that in LA because for a lot of people out here, it's a job. It's just a job. That's their job. You'll get people that are grips and electricians and all that they don't give a fuck about movies. It's just their job. And it's nice to work with people that are all understanding that we're playing. We're getting paid to play. That's so stupid. I've worked shit jobs in my life that sucked. And there's people in the world that don't have water. And I'm skinning someone on a table for 12 hours and then eating candy bars in between.
I during the premiere there, I sat next to Robert, and I was hoping that I liked the movie because I was like, oh no, one of the guys in the movie is sitting right next to me. But I did enjoy myself, and he was great in the movie. And from what I understand, like his role expanded a little bit while you were making the movie.
Yes, quite a bit. I mean, initially, like a good portion of that last act was Charles Fleischer's character. And then due to certain circumstances, it was rewritten then, and Robert took on the majority of it. So like coming into the cabin, the whole last act, all that was just kind of something we were working out day of. of, okay, what are we going to do? How are we going to do this? What are we going to say? Kind of go back and forth with the dialogue that Eben had to augment it to make it work. So Robert was similar to me. I think initially he was going to do 2 days, and then it turned into 4, and then it turned into however many he ended up with. But he was a great scene partner, because the only scene I was nervous about doing was that one, because I had some dialogue. And not only did I have dialogue, but, I didn't have time to really think about it. So, he kind of, I wouldn't say lucked out, but we got lucky that he was good. So he could pick up the rest of the movie and go with it. And he was available. And I mean, of all the kids, he's the one that does look the most Jewish. So it's kind of, which was in his, when he submitted for the role, he said he looks very Jewish. Whether he is or not, I don't know. But
yeah, I think in the Q&A he said he wasn't, and I was surprised because I assumed he was.
Yeah. Well, maybe he's self-hating.
This could be possible.
But he was similar to me in that our roles just got expanded. Like I said, I was just a background shot while Sarah was dead, just walking, just crossing frame. And it turned into, having the whole role, which was, it's a bummer when somebody else loses something. And especially when I knew the person. But the good thing was, for the collective good of everybody, we had a discussion that the only way to make the movie work is I had to step in and just do everything. So from that regard, it was just me stepping in and going, all right, I'm going to give the best thing I can, because, I owe it to the other actor that was going to do it.
Yeah.
And I owe it to Eben and everybody. And especially the killer, man. You have a bad killer. Yeah. Your movie's sunk. And there's no mask. That was a challenging thing, because Eben fought through that. Basically for the whole 10 years he was prepping the movies, everybody wanted a mask, because that's what you do. But for this, it was important to just have it be me. And that can be daunting, knowing that it's going to just be my face. And, certainly I've been under masks before, and that's a little easier.
And they can hide, right? Speaking of your face, because I knew Sid from the conventions and had dinner with him a couple times. Not as well as you did, but I knew him a little bit. He told me a story once, I'm pretty sure it was you. Do you have like a tattoo of your own face on your ass?
I absolutely do.
All right, I thought that was it.
And I'll tell you how that came about. So at Rock and Shock one year, it was like 1 a.m. We were all fucked up. That year, all the guests were raising money for Hurricane Katrina. They had buckets on their table and everything. I believe this was a Saturday night, and all the guests combined had raised like $110 for the Hurricane Fund. Well, we were all discussing, because my shtick back then, although I never did at Rock and Shock, is I would do readings. I'd read from my book. I'd get an hour to just do whatever popped in my head. But I would fly into whatever city or drive into whatever city I was in. I would buy a toilet from like a Home Depot. I'd get it all bloody and paint it in my room. And then I'd fill it with Little Debbie brownies, and I would sit on it while I read during my panels. I'd pull my pants down and everything. And during the reading, I would like throw brownies into the crowd, or I would be eating them and smearing them on my face. It was just weird shit I would do because I was fucked up. And if you've ever read any of my stuff, my shit's kind of fucked up. So it kind of fit that. But my joke always was, because I'd always end by standing up and turning around and showing my ass, that the joke was, I'm only known for my ass, and my face needed some love. And my friend we were standing there with, Steve, Uncle Creepy Barton, used to be at Dread Central and all those places, said, you should get your face tattooed on your ass. And I said, well, tell you what, if you pull the money in to do it, I'll do it tomorrow. And he immediately took 2 steps to Sid, and Sid pulled out a $100 bill and got the fund rolling. I think within an hour and a half, we had $1,400, and of which we donated the rest to Ass Aid Cheeks for charity. So we donated the excess to Katrina. But God, it was Sid, Ken Forey, Bill Mosley, Andrew Divoff, Jeffrey Combs. Pretty much all my friends at the show all kicked in money for me to get my face tattooed on my ass, which I did on a table in the middle of the show. Which then became my calling card for years. People would take pictures with it. It was a weird thing, but people always wanted to see it. And And it never really, I forget about it because
just on your ass. Yeah.
it's on my ass. Until this is years ago, I started going to the gym again, and I was in the shower with all these guys, and then I thought, oh, they're not going to get this. And I also better make sure I never go to prison because, you know, I'm going to end up with cum on my face without flipping me over.
Right. That is the reason not to go to prison.
Yeah, that is. That's the only thing that's kept me away. That's my biggest fight. So yes, I have my face tattooed on my ass. It's pretty faded now, and I forget about it, but it is there. It is. And people seem to. It was a weird thing to do. I understand. It's not a normal thing, but you know, why not?
It's a good story. It was so good. Sid told me the story at a convention one time.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he called Tony Timpone from Fangoria and everything to try to get some press for it. Which was it was Steve. That's his crowning achievement, is getting me to tattoo my face on my ass. But you know.
Yeah. How did you get involved with Rocket Shock? Because I always assumed you were from the area, from New England.
No, I'm Minnesota. I did every Rock and Shock other than the first one. The first one's the only one I didn't do. Gina, who runs it, and also Kevin, who helped create it. I met them at Monster Mania, again through Sid, through the parties, and they just kind of fell in love with me and how I am and how much fun I have, and invited me to their show, and it just turned into an every year. I kind of became, once I tattooed my face on my ass there, it kind of became the mascot of the show for a while. Because it's just a party show. That's the show where I lost my pants, and at the concert, and you know, the promoter had to have security look for my pants, because I had one of those moments where you're at a concert dancing and you've got a drink in each hand and the pants start going down, and in the shorts, I should say. And you have a choice to make. And for me, I'm not setting the drinks down, so I just kicked the shorts off with my phone and wallet and everything. And I forgot to pick them up, so we took the bus back to the old hotel it used to be in, and then realized I was in my underwear, and so I lost my pants at the show too. And it just became, I was their lucky rabbit's foot. And I'm gonna miss the show. I mean, that's the show.
Yeah, it was really sad news. You know, because I went to this last one, and I've been going for years. I'm from the area, and I had such a good time. And then I saw afterwards that it's the last one. I was like, wow, I didn't expect that. Yeah,
it's so hard to finance those shows. I mean, so much money goes into it, and you're always on the cusp of, if you book a guest that has a high guarantee, and for whatever reason they don't make it, you're in trouble. And that one in particular is hard because of the DCU Center. That's such a big venue to rent. It's not like renting a hotel where you're just taking the ballroom. And it was just always, attendance. I mean, you went over the years. Some years were really good. Some years were a little slower. And I think once, like, the Comic-Con type stuff moved into the area, and people are, those have the Avengers, you're going to get a lot more people that are going to head to that kind of stuff. So I'm sad to see it go, because it was always like my home show, because we used to also fly out for the New England Metal Fest every year. So we would spend a couple weeks out there, and we'd stay longer to go to Salem, and because we love the area. My grandma came over from Poland during the war and settled in the Boston area. So nice. It's kind of where our family's initially from. So I mean, when we were deciding where to move, Boston area was a possibility for us, but it was the cold. We like the architecture, the old buildings, all that, but it's cold there.
Yes, it is. Plus Worcester itself, like, it was kind of depressing to walk around this year. Like, so many things are just gone. It's almost like a desolate area.
Yeah, Worcester's a little. It's rough. It's rough for sure, but I'm gonna miss it, because it just felt like a home away from home every year, and seeing the same people and hanging out, and I mean, I'm sure somebody's gonna do something else, I'm sure it'll happen. But if it is, hopefully I can catch on that so I can come back. But I kind of turned into their mascot, so they always needed to have me there. I was their good luck charm.
Yeah. I saw you there every year. I've said hi, but I always think no one will know who I am, so I usually don't come up and say too much. But next time I see you somewhere, I will introduce myself.
Absolutely. I tend to be the same sometimes too. That I'll see people and I'll be like, well, I don't want to walk up to them, but I don't know if they're going to walk up to me, and then you debate back and forth walking up, and
you totally overthink it. Exactly.
And then the moment's over. Shows are different. I mean, truthfully, I'm a fan. That's it. That has been lucky enough to get to play a little bit, and I never lose sight of that. I mean, that's the key, is no egos, no nothing. I just am what I am. I'm a weird kid from Eota, Minnesota, that somehow found a way through love of horror to play a little bit.
Yeah. Were your parents cool with you watching horror movies?
Yeah. My mom was always allowed it, and my uncle Mike and my grandma Nana were the ones that really allowed me to explore it. I mean, my Uncle Mike would take me to see Friday the 13th 4 when I was 8 years old. I remember they took me to Creepshow in '82. I was 6. My uncle always read Stephen King, so that's all I read. When Stephen King books were coming out, that was what I read back then. So they're the ones that really allowed me to love horror. And my mom, to her credit, she allowed them to let me do that. She let me have the posters, get in the Fangoria. My uncle would take me to comic shops. We'd buy Fangoria. I'd cut the pictures out and hang them on the walls. I mean, I still have like issues of Fangoria from back then, because my favorite movie of all time is Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, for personal reasons from growing up. But so it's bizarre to then have done movies with like Caroline and Bill Moseley did an introduction to one of my books, and they allowed me to love horror, and I did the same with my kids. I didn't force it on them. If they liked horror, they liked horror. If they didn't, they didn't. Luckily for me, they do like horror. 2 of them are really into horror. One of them's kind of on the fence, but that's what you got to do. You show them what you like, and if they want to take to it, great. If they don't, you don't force it. But horror was always in my blood. It just always felt right. Monsters, and I had all the Universal Monster toys, the Remco shit when I was young, and so they always let me explore that. I think because like my mom was a young mom, she was 19 when she had me. My uncle was a couple years older, so they were also young and kind of experiencing some of that too. And it was the same. I was a dad at 19, so it's very similar. I think horror is one that you like. I hear people go, "Oh, I don't watch horror movies," and I'm like, "How do you not fucking watch horror movies ever?" And which I don't get, because I watch everything. Like my second favorite genre movie is probably romantic comedies, because I like shit like that. But some people, they don't gravitate towards it. I think some of us do. It just feels right.
Did any of them get to see like you in movies?
Yes. We did some of the early stuff. Like I was married to a Mormon woman for years, and when we got divorced, and then I was with Sarah after that, and the first time they saw Sarah, they watched a movie on pay-per-view that she was topless in, which was quite a change from the Mormon marriage. But they've been lucky to see me progress. We were lucky enough that Blind got into the Twin Cities Film Fest last year, and that's a huge film fest. Like the year before, Green Book won for Best Picture there. So it's Oscar caliber movies. And we got in mainly because we're Minnesota people that left and made a movie. And that helped us get into that fest. But because it was only an hour and a half from where we grew up, all of our family and friends got to come see that screening, which was awesome. Because it's in a very nice theater. Screened in 4K, which is awesome. And that was a good moment for us to have, to kind of go home and say, this is what we're doing here, and this is why we moved here. It's to just elevate, what we can do. And we're thrilled with that. I know one of the movies I'm doing with Marcel, we're doing together this year, we want to shoot in Minnesota. So it'd be nice to go back there and now like bring some work and business back to the people we worked with before, and rub it in their face. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. No, I guess
it's 2020. You can't rub anything in anybody's face anymore.
Right.
Unfortunately,
but no.
I've been with Sarah for 10 years, and I don't have sex with her without her signing a fucking non-disclosure agreement.
Uh-huh.
Don't tell anybody we're going to do this.
Yeah. How did you meet Sarah, by the way?
I killed her in her first movie.
All right.
I cut her head off.
Very romantic.
And beat her friend with it. A movie called Your Next 3 Pajama Party Massacre. It was her and Elska McCain, if you remember Elska McCain.
The name sounds very familiar.
Yeah. She had some issues online over time, but it was a 25-minute short, and I played a killer. They're two ladies having a sleepover, and cheesy as fuck. They get into a fight with ice cream cones, and one takes a bath, and just really ridiculous. But we were friends for a couple years, Sarah and I, and then we did 2 more movies together, and just started bonding over our love of music, because I like metal and she loves metal, and then things just kind of shifted. It became more than friends, and nobody ever believes this, but it's the truth. She's the one who actually was making the moves on me, and people find that hard to believe.
Uh-huh.
But it was her. She wanted a piece of the Knetter pie, and
who can blame her?
And she got it. And she's probably sick of the pie now. She probably wants something else, like some cake or something. But no, things are great. Sarah and I. It's funny because people always go, "Oh, yeah, she of course she's getting good roles. You're a writer." But Blind's the first thing,
that she's been in that you're in.
Yeah, since we've been together, it's just this was the right one to do it. And then I wrote Desert Moon, and she starred in that. And then the next 2 things with Marcel, she's also starring in. But by that point, I'll be able to, I'll have given her a career, and I'll be able to set her free, and I'll have to find another low rent scream queen to take the greatness.
Mm-hmm. It's a very romantic story, I think. Yeah, you said about your love of romantic comedy. I think you have one right there.
Yeah. It's from cutting her head off to
to setting her free.
It was fun though. She was very green back then because Sarah. People don't realize she went to school for criminal justice.
Oh, really?
And then was like 1 quarter away from graduating, where she decided, I guess I want to be an actress, and she totally shifted what she wanted to do. And she's worked hard over the years to get where she's at. And we just have fun. I mean, we laugh a lot. For me, that's the key, is you got to find someone that just you can laugh with, because I'm a handful. Like how I am is how I am almost all the time. And not everybody can handle my humor and how I am. Because listen, I'm high functioning on the spectrum, so I have different things that pop in my head. I say and do, and there's never malice or anything, but I can be weird and I can be a handful. And for me, it was good to find someone that can just laugh at my bullshit, laugh at the stupid shit I say, and really join me on this journey, because you really need that. Being a couple in this industry is very difficult. More often than not, I get it from people going, how do you deal with Sarah maybe having a romantic scene in a movie with somebody or any? It's not real. And she has a sex scene in Desert Moon, and I had to choreograph it. And like, that doesn't even faze me, because, I know if anything bad were to happen and she were to go astray, I would, immediately have 12 other low rent scream queens just waiting.
Lined up, right?
Yeah. No, every year I remove some, because it has to be new ones on the list,
All right. Some of them move up and down.
Yeah.
Or just maybe they disappear.
Some of them move back to Ohio, and I'm like, no, you're up.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. Of course I'm kidding.
Right.
Sarah,
it is
Sarah
weird nowadays. You have to say you're kidding because a lot of people will not understand humor.
No. Listen, me and Steve did a podcast for a couple of years, and when everything went down and you couldn't joke anymore, it became like, fuck, I should be able to joke about me and Sarah.
Right.
If she's not offended by it, it shouldn't matter. But people get so fucking butthurt over everything now. And it's a challenge because
I find myself saying this all the time, and then once in a while people are like, well, yeah, I know you're kidding, and it's like, well, I have to say that sometimes because you don't know anymore. Like, unfortunately, you say something you think obviously is just so preposterous that you're totally kidding. It's not serious, but people will, no matter how insane it is, someone will take it serious on the internet.
And then it turns into a whole fucking thing, and you're like, no, Sarah's great. We are joined on this journey called life, and I wouldn't want to be here doing it with anybody other than her, and that's the truth.
That's very nice. And like you said about laughter and stuff, obviously she's very good looking stuff, but there's more to life than that. You're around someone a lot. It's nice to enjoy their company.
You have to, it's more than just somebody being good looking. You have to have the personality, the connection, the humor. You have to have 90% in common and 10% not, because everything can't be in common or that's not good either. You need to have those subtle differences. But for me, it's always been, it's two things. You got to make them laugh and you got to make them come. If you can do those two things, then you're set.
There you go. And by the way, after the show, you could send me some of those. Maybe you can go down to 10 or 12, the one, on the list.
Okay.
Maybe you could hook Nasty Neil up with some of the relevant.
I will send you some names.
All right. Very good. Very good.
They are not. Well, let's put it this way: they're good looking.
All right.
Now it's going to turn into a fucking, like, Steve and I had flat earthers on our show once, and they made a huge YouTube video of the conversation, everything that had 2,500 comments from all other flat earthers on how Steve and I were hired actors by the government, meant to. So somebody out there is going to go, oh, he's got a list of 12. Let's try to figure it out.
We'll figure it there. Right. I name names here, but I don't want to involve anybody. But
it'll be yeah.
Yeah, it would not be good. So how do people follow Joe Knetter? Like, not to your home, but like, how do they follow you online? See what you're up to.
Well, I have my Facebook page, which is, I think, full, so that's probably not the best thing. And my Instagram. I don't do Twitter. When James Gunn lost his gig over Twitter, I said, nope, I got to get rid of mine. That's gone. But Instagram, I'm trying to build the Instagram. Otherwise, Facebook. I don't have a website really anymore or anything, but just Joe Knetter on Instagram, and same on Facebook. I don't use social media near as much. I'm trying to get away from it because it just takes over your life. But we have to have it. When you're in this industry, you gotta have it. So
I definitely wouldn't have a Twitter if it wasn't for the podcast, because I don't care for it at all. But you have to promote your whatever you're doing. Yeah,
it's important now. I mean, Sarah goes to auditions, and that's part of what you have to bring is your amount of followers. That matters when it comes to casting now, which is stupid. So I would say Instagram, Facebook, Google. Just Google me, although you'll never spell my name right. So
that's a hard spell, I guess. Yeah.
Right. I booked I think 2 days on To Catch a Predator, so I'm excited about that. And
that's always very good. Take a seat over here and
we shouldn't laugh about that, but god damn it.
Yeah. You guys are laughing about pedophiles, but
When I was in Vegas the last time, we were in an Uber, and the lady kept saying, "I know you from somewhere," and I said, "Well, I was on 2 episodes of Catch a Predator, a normal one and then the best of," and she's like, "Oh." And then it got silent, and we left it silent the rest of the trip.
I knew where that was going, but I absolutely love that story.
It's
I think I might steal that.
It's ridiculous, but no, I see. I like watching that show because they're horrible people, and they get everything they deserve.
Yeah, but I know most people be like, "Oh, well, it's entrapment," but I'm like, "Yeah, but it's entrapment of people that's trying to pick up like little kids on the internet."
No, it's they get everything they deserve. But the reason the show somewhat failed is because you can't help but occasionally feel bad for them a little bit.
Right.
Not most, but some of them you can tell are just kind of nerdy guys that have never had anybody. And it just so happens somebody flirted with them, and that doesn't excuse what they're doing.
Sure.
But when they go, "Oh, you've never done this before, I don't believe you," I'm sure most of those haven't. Nobody's ever responded to them in any way.
Right.
With that being said, they're horrible people. They should go to jail. All that. I'm not joking about any of that. But
yeah. Get a tattoo of their face on their ass before they go.
Yeah. I used to have a friend that actually had a Chris Hansen shirt that said "cock blocker" underneath his shirt. And, I wonder if he wears that anymore. I would guess probably. Probably not.
No, you can't. Unfortunately, but I do like it.
I mean, I'm a firm believer that you got to be able to joke about everything. It's everything or nothing. There can't be a line.
There's a difference between joking about and being like mean spirited and being hateful to somebody.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like I may make a To Catch a Predator joke, but I'm not out there,
Right. And when you say that, it's not like you're joking. Like, I think it's cool to joke about someone who's like molested or something.
No, absolutely not.
A joke about the show. And if you say something that's really just outlandish, it's not really joking about that thing, if that makes sense.
No, I totally agree. As long as there's no menace or hurt, and you should be able to say whatever. But again, we live in a time where you can't. You just can't. And we have to understand that to a certain extent. And that's why, for me, I got lucky. The year that I was most injured with my back was the year where everything kind of hit the fan and you weren't allowed to joke anymore. So all I could do all day is sit in my backyard listening to music and feed squirrels. So it allowed me to weather that storm. Because, I had my squirrels, I had my music, and that was it. No more weirdness, because I've gotten away with saying a lot of shit over the years. I really have, because everybody knew I was kidding and it was never serious. But all of a sudden the switch happened where if you said anything during that moment, during that period, you were fucked. You were absolutely fucked.
Yeah, my brother used to joke he said like I would get away with certain things because I was like lovable.
Yeah.
But it's probably true to an extent, because they would say, "Oh, he's just a goofball. He's just joking around," But that should be the case for everybody.
Yeah, it's all joking till you get to the second knuckle, and then then it becomes real.
Exactly. Well, this has been great, and I think we should do it again sometime.
Yeah, man, this is fun. I warned you before we started that I talk a lot and I go on tangents. It's how my mind works. It's
perfect. I like the show to go wherever it is we happen to talk about. I always do a little outline of what we're going to do, but usually don't stick with it.
Okay.
Unless it's someone who just says yes or no, then you basically just stick to your outline. That's not fun. And as someone who's done podcasts, that's not a good time.
No. Steve handled the majority. Like, we had a 2-hour show. The first show would just be us saying whatever popped in our heads. The second hour would be an interview, but he would handle most of the interview. My job was just to eat an edible and just go. That was it. I never planned anything. I'm just going to eat an edible and whatever pops in my head goes.
Yeah. It's just weird that the last year at Boston Underground Film Festival was a year ago, pretty much from now, because it's like in 2 weeks. It was the first time I ever had an edible.
Really? Did you enjoy it?
I did. And it was funny because I said, like, I don't think this is really doing anything to me. And then I saw pictures of me like the next day, and I was like, oh, yeah, this obviously had an effect on me.
Edibles can be hit and miss. I know people that it just will not work. And for me, I like it because it's the cheapest way to do it. It's the healthiest. And, you can last hours on it. I can take a $3 portion of an edible and feel good for 4 hours, because I also use it for pain management. It is partially pain management, but But you can go too far. I've certainly gone too far before. I've had where I've lied in bed and I died. I was sure I died. And I put my arms out and I felt myself float above the bed and I was certain this is it. I died. And I'm not religious at all, but I started confessing all my sins, like whispering them to myself. And as I floated to the ceiling, and I even confessed the stuff I hadn't done yet, but I thought I might in my life. And it was a gnarly moment. I was sure I just died. That's it. I just died. And then you breathe and you come back to earth and you're like, okay, it's fine. Because you can get too much. And if you take too high a dose, you feel like you're dying. But you can't. Nobody's ever died from it. Nobody ever will die from it.
Right.
Not from edibles, but you know the doses. Mm-hmm. I'm usually in a 40 to 50 milligram guy. That's what I start with. And, and it just helps. It helps life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I got my mom had bad back for forever and always took handfuls of ibuprofen and since she started doing edibles, she hasn't taken anything. I mean, it's just her back's fine.
Yeah,
that's all she takes.
It really does help, and it's not like the pills that can really affect you. And we'll end this with me giving one more thing that helps, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart. Everybody should go on Amazon and buy a bidet. They have these bidets that hook to your toilet seat that blast water in your ass so you don't need to use all the toilet paper. Mm-hmm. It has changed my life. I'm only bringing this up because the toilet paper shortage is everywhere. This is no joke. Mm-hmm. Have you ever used a bidet?
I have not, but as soon as you started to say that, I was like, it's a good time because
they're $30. Mm-hmm. They just go under your toilet seat, hook to your water. It is the most amazing thing ever. It is. Every other country in the world has them, but here we like to wipe, and it is wonderful. It gets you right in the hole perfectly, and it is. You feel refreshed, you feel happy, and that's probably the best way to end our talk about Hanukkah.
I think so. I think you sold me
with a wonderful bidet, because then you only need one little piece of toilet paper to dry.
Mm-hmm. Let me give this a shot. I like this. Well, it's been awesome. It's been really good. Honestly,
absolutely,
not just because
man.
you're here. I've really enjoyed this.
Well, good. I was hoping you weren't going to hate my weirdness.
My name is Victoria DeMar.